Hello and welcome to week 4 live chat with Dr. Safian. I am Dr. Safian, and I wanted to discuss with you a particular perspective that may help many of you understand the components of health information systems, most importantly, an EHR, electronic health record system, which is the biggest of all of the systems. And the way to look at the whole entire project as if you were going to work through acquisition and implementation. And the reason why I wanted to go through this with you is I'm already seeing in the discussion forum and in some of your assignments that many of you are not really thinking deeply enough about what these systems contain and what must be into consideration when you are in charge of a project of this nature. And this is certainly within the realm of your job description or your future job description. So what I wanted to do was take you through the elements of a request for proposal, also known as an RFP, request for proposal. And this is the documentation that you as the project manager will put together to make sure you are itemizing everything that is needed from this software program. And it doesn't matter if it's an EHR or a CPOE or a CDSS, or claim submission, it doesn't matter. The point is that your first part of the project is to speak with your prospective users, the doctors, the nurses, or the coders, or whomever it might be, whoever your audience is, who's going to be actually using this software and or hardware, and find out what they need the technology to do and what they then wish on top of that. Oh, well, it'll be great if it could also whatever. Okay. All right. So the first thing that you're going to do in this request for proposal, and again, as you are looking at a project of this nature, you really need to start with a blank piece of paper, so to speak. I know that we're dealing with technology, but you understand what I mean. A blank screen, all right? A blank Word document. And you need to put down and look at the third bullet here, all required components and features along with a wish list. And that's what you need to do. But before you can put it down, you must speak to those who will be using the software. This is going to help you get the buy-in. This is going to help make training much easier. And of course, the whole implementation into everyday use when you are giving the people what they want and need. You are looking to make their jobs easier, more efficient, more effective. And this is very important. Okay, you need to make sure that you are looking at the details, the history. By now, we're in 2020, so you would be hard-pressed to be working for an organization that did not already have some type of system, or maybe other systems. Maybe this is a physician's office, and they have systems for lab and for imaging, but not yet for electronic health records. I personally know some physicians who have not started implementing EHR until the last year or two because they're very resistant to change. Okay, so the point is you need to know the history of any existing systems that are already in place, so you can determine whether you can get a plug-in additional component that all the systems can communicate with each other. Interoperability is incredibly important. Or maybe you need to get rid of those and start from scratch with one brand new organizational wide system. You need to get into the history of the system. You also want to look at the history of the last acquisition implementation, learn from their mistakes, what went wrong, what may you be able to avoid and do better in this acquisition for this update. You want to make sure you understand the organization, particularly what we call the powers that be. These are individuals, usually maybe the president or the board of directors or all inclusive, that are they're going to have an opinion, they're going to have a say, they may be writing the check for this. They will not be part of your day-to-day committee to get this done, but you still have to know who they are because you have to make them happy as well. You have to know what their concerns are. Are they only worried about not going over budget? Are they worried about interoperability with other systems, with other organizations, with a health information exchange in the state or with other states? Perhaps they may be looking at a buyout of other practices or something of that nature, and they don't want to tell you outright, but they know that your new system is going to have to be compatible with their existing system. You need to find this out. You need to ferret this out. Okay, you need to find out about operations. You need to remember that a hospital or a physician's office or a clinic is not just the clinical side. The administrative side, especially health information management, is going to have a great deal of need from this system. And honestly, if you are a part of health information management, the rest of the department has to have their say, because if you don't get the coders on board, your facility is not going to have any money, because the coders are in charge of all of the revenue that comes into the facility. You also have to remember HR, human resources, as well as finance, as well as the clinicians and the ancillary services. You need to understand your patient population. You may need to ensure that the system has the ability to plug in a patient portal. Hospitals and doctors' offices alike, this is very important for patient engagement. And we are we're in 2020. This is a part of the picture. This is not a future aspect. This is a part of what we are doing. And special goals, which also could be tied into the patient population. If you have a nearby rural area, or the facility caters to a lot of patients with chronic conditions, or a psychiatric behavioral health department where telemedicine is really taking off, you want to make certain that this is a part of what you are looking at for the new system. Don't forget the mobile aspect. Physicians are going to want to stay connected to the EHR system so they can call in a prescription or answer a phone call or an email from a patient, and they don't have to be in the office. But we are still keeping everything encrypted so that patient information is protected. We must always comply with HIPAA's privacy rule and security rule. And if you're not familiar with those two aspects, particularly the security rule, you need to get there, because this is a federal mandate. And the penalties for non-compliance are incredibly severe. Okay, Now, when you're talking to the potential vendors to whom you're going to send this RFP, you want to make certain you are asking certain questions that includes these 4 questions. When is your next version release? Because if they say 6 months, then it certainly would make sense for you to wait and check out that version and see what the story is with the new version. Is it going to be more expensive? Does it have more of the features that you want? You want to do a single implementation. You don't want to do an implementation and then have to do a new version download and then possible retraining right away. Okay? Is there a single database for scheduling, billing, and the EHR so they can talk to each other? This is another thing that's very important in 2020 for technology in healthcare systems, is we want to be able to have patients and other physicians, if they're doing referrals or if this is a hospital and they want to admit someone, to be able to do scheduling online. Billing certainly should be online, and of course you need to make sure that you can successfully do electronic submission of claim forms to third-party payers. And then, of course, the EHR, because, again, all of the systems need to integrate. They all need to be able to talk to each other and share information. This is 2020. Back in 2016, 2017, it was a different time when there was more of a mosaic of old systems and new systems. But if you're going to go through a re-implementation and upgraded system, you want to make sure that this is a unified system. We need it for accuracy. You want to find out if it is client server, ASP, or a hosted model. And if you don't know what these things are, I'm hearing my mother's voice in my head now. Look it up, okay? All right. And I mentioned this before, does the product have a patient portal? Because, again, it doesn't matter. Hospital, clinic, nursing home, pathology lab, imaging center. You need to have that patient portal included in the entire system. All right. So next, was the product or any of its significant functionality acquired from another company? You need to ask this question. They will not necessarily volunteer it. And if it is yes, you need to investigate this, because, again, you do not want jury-rigged systems. You want systems that were born together. You also want to make sure that the originator of the original hardware and software did not go out of business because it was so unsuccessful, or because hospitals and facilities had problems with their software. This needs to be investigated. And by the way, you want to be sending your RFP to at least 3 different vendors before a decision is made on which system you're going to employ. All right, next question about product information. Does the product include a patient portal and or, okay, I know I've said this 3 times now, so it's pretty important, isn't it? Patient portal, does it allow integration with third-party patient portals, such as Google Health, maybe Apple Health, Microsoft Health Vault, iHealth? There are lots of them out there. Okay, you want to make this as easy as possible for both patients as well as your clinicians, because that's what we do. All right, next, is the product modular? This is, again, not only looking for right now, Because remember, you have that demand list, the things that your users have told you you must absolutely have. And then plus you have your wish list, okay? And we know that technology is moving forward at a very rapid pace. So I'm not saying that it should be module, but you want to know all of the modules, and if it is modular, all of the modules available so you can make the best choice possible, and all of the details that go with them. Because remember, while we're not using meaningful use criteria, the reason I left this at the bottom, the second bullet, meaningful use ended in 2017. But the fact of the matter is that there are still good ideas in there. There are still things that you can trigger your knowledge base, your understanding of these systems from meaningful use. So just because it's not active with regard to the federal government providing money, it still can be very helpful to you in your education about systems, what systems can do, what they need to do, and things of that nature. Okay, are there ever additional charges? What if you decide to change vendors? What if you decide to use an outside source to do coding, or not to do coding, but to do billing? There are lots of possibilities in the future, and we don't have crystal balls. So there's no way that we can know. But before you choose a system, you want to make sure that you know about these potential charges about moving patient data, copying, retrieving, whatever it might be. All right. You also want to know all of the different ways that you can input data from your existing system, perhaps from other systems, such as, hospitals are acquiring physician practices. If you're in a process of doing that, or certainly even if you already own physician practices and other ancillary services and outliers, you are going to need to merge their information with your information so it's all part of one system. So you need to ask the question, how do we get this information from there to here? What if we still have paper records somewhere? What if it's on a flash drive or a CD, DVD, PDF? You have to ask the question so you can know how the information can transmit from where it is at this very moment into the new system. Okay, report generations. Now, in health information and health informatics, we manage information. And these are information systems, right? So we have to be able to get the information out of the system so we can use it. And gone are the days of manually categorizing and analyzing, okay? We are and include data analysts, but we don't analyze data in the old-fashioned way because we now have computers to do that. But we need the computer to be able to generate reports in the way we want them. Now, certainly there are standard reports that are necessary to prove HIPAA requirements, maybe for a third-party payer, for a visit from the Joint Commission, but there are going to be other things that we're going to want to create reports about. Or maybe I don't know what those other things are yet because I still don't have my crystal ball. So, but I want to know how challenging is it is if somebody says, oh, can we pull this data so we can study this? Can I say yes? Are you going to say yes if I call you and say, we need this? You have to find out about this because this is the new way to run a system. Training. You need to find out who is going to do the training. Now, most vendors will handle initial training with your people, okay? First, you want to do a demo copy. You're going to need that in convincing the board of directors, the clinicians, and everybody else when you try and get their buy-in before the absolute invoice is printed. You know, before you do the implementation, you're going to have to sell them on the system that you choose. So a demo copy is important. Is the implementation on site, or are they going to do it remotely? They can do that now. But maybe we need human beings from the vendor in the building when this happens. I don't know. Can it be done remotely? I have attended both ways of implementations, but you need to find out what is included in the package, what costs extra, okay? And training options. Will they just train a few of you and then you have to turn around and train your staff, your clinicians and your admin staff and your coders and whomever? Will they handle training? Will the training be done on site, or do you have to have all your people go somewhere? Are there a limited number of hours that they will provide training? I don't know. But trust me when I tell you that if you do not train your people and get them to a level of comfort on the system, you are going to need a lot of Excedrin. That's aspirin for those of you who don't know. The only way to do this is to do it correctly. And the only way to do it correctly is to ensure that you have proper training for your people to get them to a comfort level to use it. You also want to make sure that you have the availability for support, because 3 weeks after the training, Dr. Smith is going to go, oh my gosh, I forgot how to do this. You're going to need an 800 number. You're going to need somebody ready, willing, and able and capable to continue training on that as needed or on demand basis. This is your responsibility. And trust me, if you don't demand it and your people don't get the proper training, everybody in your building is going to complain about the implementation of this system, and they're all going to blame you because it's always the project manager's fault. The system doesn't work. Well, it does work. You have to click over here, not over there. Oh, well, I don't know. I didn't get, right? This is not, and you have to remember, we are healthcare. We have people's lives in our hands. It doesn't matter if you're the coder or the head of HIM or the head of IS or a clinician or whatever. The fact is we all are part of a team that are responsible for people's lives and the quality of their lives. And yes, this is a big part of this. Okay, you also need to discuss and look into security and security features. You need to make certain that the system can be set up to comply with HIPAA security rule. And you better make sure that when you say that to the vendor, they know what the heck you're talking about, okay? You need backup systems for data protection because technology is a blessing and a curse. We cannot lose patient data. We need to know about licensing. Is it done on a per person basis, on a per building basis, on a per monitor basis? How is this done? And what happens if we expand our project, our facility? What happens if we contract what happens if we get bought out by somebody else and we need to cancel our thing with you because we're covered under them? Computerized physician order entry. Is it included? You all just had an assignment related to this. Very important, critical, and it's basically wrapped up with e-prescribing, except CPOE also often now in 2020 connects with imaging, with the imaging department as well as pathology, not only the pharmacy. You got to know about this. It's got to be there. The first year that CPOE was widely implemented in the United States, they documented the saving of over 50,000 patient lives the first year. This is not something you want your system to not have. Okay, you need to make sure that you check and double check the infrastructure and the technology details. Again, not only for compatibility with what is already existing in the facility, not only for interoperability, whether it's with an RHIO, a regional health information organization, or an HIE, a health information exchange, but also the different departments. You need a physician to be able to pull up a patient record and be able to actually look at the pictures from the MRI or the x-rays, look at the results from the lab work. All of this. You need to make sure that there's an email server within the system, not only for patients to communicate in an encrypted basis with a physician or a nurse, but also for them to respond back to the patients. Physicians need to communicate with other physicians. Documents need to be sent to third-party payers as well as other facilities, ancillary services all over the country. You need to know what the status is and make sure that you are clear on what this system from this vendor can do or not do. What external devices are supported? You know that your physicians are going to want to be able to have encrypted phones, to be able to be off campus and still get access to patient information. Do your nurses want barcode? Is that a good idea, especially for administration of medication? Do you need scanners for conversion of paper to the system? Do you need a way to copy the patient's picture with a photo ID, as well as card readers and other input devices? When is customer service available? You have to ask the question. Remember that, you know, in a physician's office, office hours, okay, you just have to check on the scope. Okay, in other words, there are physicians' offices that are open at 7 in the morning. There are other physicians' offices that are open until 10 o'clock at night. There are physicians' offices open on Saturdays and Sundays or whatever. Okay, remember, if you are working for a hospital, it's 24/7, no days off. You need to know that your night shift, the nurses who are working at 3 o'clock in the morning, can have support on the system, as well as those who are working at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. problem resolution is also very important because you must understand that while everybody goes into a new system like this, it's all exciting. It's like a first date, or it's like first getting married. Everything is wonderful, okay? But we don't know what's going to happen. I can guarantee you things will happen. That's just the way it happens, you know? Okay, so it's incredibly important that you make sure that you find out what this manufacturer is going to do to provide for when you have that time, when you have those problems, when something goes wrong. We don't know what's going to go wrong, but I can guarantee you something is going to go wrong. And continuing with support services, you need to make sure you can guarantee that to everyone who's going to be on staff, everybody who's going to be using this. Are the staff certified? Do they really know what they're doing? Where are they? Are they in the United States? Are they in India? You have to know this. And you have to make sure it's not somebody just answering a phone. You have to make sure that these are going to be people who can walk you through a problem and a solution. Okay. All right. What questions do you have? Email me. Tell me what your questions are and get answers either via email, or we can always set up a phone appointment to talk, because sometimes you just have to talk it through. And I love it when students have questions. So I hope you found this helpful, and know that I am in the course 7 days a week. Have a great evening, and I'll see you in the class.